ran into my good old friend, not that you're old, Ed Connors, the former owner of the Gold's Gym franchise, and probably the guy who's produced more champions or recognized more talent over the years than anyone else out there. You've discovered the likes of Mike Madrazo. Give me the list.
It's a pretty long list, but I don't want to leave anyone out. But I had over 600 house guests.
Yeah, they've all stayed at Jay Cutler. I've stayed at your house.
Yeah, you were a house guest. I had 3 houses at one point, so about a dozen bedrooms. I think in the age of gurus, my house was a guru house because the guys learn from each other.
You're right.
There were usually 3 or 4 guys there, and so you can't really hide anything, and the gym is not really the opportunity it should be to exchange ideas. But this way you can see what people are eating, how they're eating, what they're taking, how much sleep they get or don't, or hopefully go train with them at the gym. But at Jay Cutler, I met at 19. He was a house guest, and
you've advised a lot of these guys professionally, business-wise.
I've tried. I mean, I encourage them to get their pro card early, and I think there's always that wait and see attitude, or I'm not big enough, and I've tried to say, you need to just go for it, do it.
Who's the most successful bodybuilder that's ever stayed at your house?
Oh, probably financially, John Cena.
Oh, really? Yeah. I didn't even think about that. Yeah.
I mean, he is probably the most dedicated. He was a machine. I met him in the parking lot.
Did you hire him? Were you responsible for hiring him to work at Gold's?
Yeah, at one point, but I met him in the parking lot. It happened to be Matt Damon and Mark Wahlberg were training at the gym, and he looked like a Matt Damon with big arms.
You're right, he does. Yeah.
And so I said, have you ever thought about professional wrestling? He said it would be his dream.
Right.
18 months later, he had a WWE contract.
Were you responsible for that?
I helped, yeah.
John Cena, for those of you who don't remember, worked the front desk at Gold's Gym. Had he been there before you, or did you get him in there?
No, he was looking for a job. He actually started moving gym equipment, and at one point we had a pro shop or a supplement store in the gym, and he was hired to work it. Did a great job. A lot of people remember him from that.
What in your mind said to you, this guy's going to be a star? I mean, how did you recognize him?
He had a great face. He was telegenic. Like so many of the guys, again, like a Matt Damon or Mark Wahlberg. Living in LA, you see people and you just know that they're star material. Right. They've got a great look.
Who was the biggest disappointment?
I'd have to really think about.
Would it be Craig Titus to you?
Well, yeah, Craig was a house guest, and in fact, I guess I guess given his situation, he would be the biggest disappointment because I visited him. I gave up 3 weekends to visit him in jail.
You did visit him?
The first time he got in jail.
Oh, when he went to jail for performance.
And you would think, and I exchanged all these letters, sent him magazines, proteins and powders. We had this big plan for him to come out and revive his career, which he was sort of doing. I saw him maybe for 15, 20 minutes after he got out of jail the first time, and then of course he went downhill after that. So, and now he's back in. You would think that somebody who was in jail once would never want to go back and be more careful, but I guess you're right because of where he is with his life. But Eric Fromm was, it's a shame.
Disappointment.
Paul DeMayo, I went to his funeral. Again, but it wasn't the bodybuilding lifestyle that killed him. It was recreational drugs.
Yeah.
Paul died of an overdose of heroin. Right. Eric Fromm an overdose of something. When someone gets down that low, you can't. They have to find themselves. Right. You can't really help them. Yeah. I remember. One of the guys at the gym, I bailed out of jail the first time he got in trouble, and then the next time I didn't do it. And he said, Ed, thanks for not doing that because I needed to hit bottom before I could get up again. So it's, all these deaths you hear about, they're not for the reasons that are being talked about. And
what do you think about the death of Joe Weider?
Well, I was there 2 weeks ago I did an interview with Sean Ray for MD. To me, it felt like the end of an era. I was at his funeral. There were about 60 people there. Arnold spoke, did a beautiful job of memorializing Joe, and I got up at the eulogy at the reception and said, I want to thank Arnold for the bodybuilding world because he's never forgotten his roots.
Yeah, you're right. He always has been loyal to Joe.
A lot of people who have forgotten their roots, and he never has, and he always gives Joe credit. And at the eulogy, he even gave Joe more credit than I've ever heard him give. And I've since learned, the last couple of years, I spent a lot of time with Joe and Betty Weider. And I now realize all that they did for him, which was quite a lot.
Oh, so you didn't realize the magnitude of it?
I didn't realize the magnitude. I mean, I knew brought him over here. But Joe even helped Arnold get his first movie contract. Joe talked about, or Arnold at the eulogy said, Joe just said, well, I want to take you to this interview for a movie. Don't talk. Don't open your mouth. I'll talk for you. Right. He told him he was a great German Shakespearean actor. And of course, Arnold said it as the eulogy. What's a German Shakespearean actor? There doesn't exist. So he did everything for him, and I don't think Arnold's very grateful. Yeah. And I think Arnold has the memorial this coming Sunday, which you can see on bodybuilding.com.
Yeah.
So
I'll have to watch. I wasn't invited to any funeral services yet.
The invite Sunday is limited, but it'll be for you can view it on
we'll be here anyway.
Webcam.
Talk to me about who the most fun house guest was. Who was the guy that was just the craziest and you had the most fun with?
Well, that's easy actually. Jim Quinn and Mike Madrazo.
Tell me a good story about them.
I just remember Mike was one of those guys. He discovered, he was one of the first bodybuilders to discover the value of protein.
Okay.
And I remember the first time he sent him out to go shopping, he came back and he laid out all the chicken on the kitchen counter, and I said, Mike, you shouldn't have bought so much. You're going to have to freeze some of that. He says, Ed, you don't understand. This is for the next 2 days.
And he ate it all?
And he ate it all. But Jimmy Quinn, being a New Yorker, he was pretty glib, and he never really made the move to transition to the West Coast. He's still in New York City, but he had these great one-liners, and I'll never forget. Like I seen these escalators over here. I remember, just the encounters we had of people never seen.
Big guy,
yeah. big guy. He's almost 6'2", like Rich Piano over here. 180 or 285. Yeah. 300 wasn't quite the crazy goal back then that it is now. And he would show it off. Like I tell these guys at these events, this is not poetry reading. People want to see muscle. Wear a tank top, or take your shirt off if they want to take pictures with you. You spread the word. Get that groundswell of comment going about your physique. And Jimmy would he'd wear a tank top and he'd have it kind of all tied up in a knot in front, and you kind of wonder why you even wear clothes. Right. Why are you wearing this? Well, we'd go out everywhere and
people would stare.
And he'd stare, but he'd have always these one-liners. Like I remember, this is back in the days with Carl's Jr. when Gold's Gym had worked with him to try and get them to do a healthy menu. They had a charbo chicken breast, baked potato, and salad.
Right.
So we'd go there for a meal, and I remember this one guy, this older man, big belly, sitting there with this little kid, and this kid was staring at Jim like he'd seen, the Hulk incarnate or some Saturday afternoon cartoon character. And his dad said very loudly, "Well, that all turns to fat." And then so Jim Quinn gets up. He's not going to do anything, but he looks like a New York bouncer, and goes up to the table and goes, "Well, in that case, you must have been to Mr. Olympia because it looks like it's all dropped, but you ain't black." So I don't know what you're talking about. So, and the guy is like petrified, like, don't kill me, I'm sorry.
Was Jimmy the most intimidating looking guy in person? I mean, of all the guys that you've worked with over the years?
He had that bouncer stare, which is kind of a perfected look. But no, there were some...
Who was freakier, though? Aside from Dave Palumbo, of course.
Dave Palumbo, yeah. I think I told you not to quit med school.
Yeah, you did tell me that.
But anyway, who was the...
Hey, Ed's famous for talking about toilet paper usage.
Yeah.
You were always horrified by how much toilet paper bodybuilders use.
Well, no, Chris Lunn was doing an article for the British version of Muscle and Fitness or Flex, and he asked me, Ed, what do you think about today's current crop of bodybuilders? And I said, well, they're just giant shitty machines. I said, in the old days, the guys used one roll of toilet paper every 2 days, and now they're using a roll a day. So I said, you don't need to eat every 2 hours. You're just, they're giant shitty machines.
They're overeating today.
Overeating, definitely. Yeah. John Cena, he had maybe 8 protein drinks a day, and if I didn't buy him dinner or whatever that night, he didn't eat solid food. You could, now because of thanks to AIDS and these Ensure and products like that, or these powders here, you can live off drinks pretty much.
Think that's better than all the food?
Well, the guys get too obsessive with it. You can't have a life. I say, you're not going to have a relationship, a family, if you have to live this way. Because I remember the old days, where the guys like Matt Mendenhall. Right. There's some greats that I haven't mentioned, but Matt Mendenhall would be one of the greatest, and he, I mean,
why didn't he make it?
They wanted perfection, you know, and I don't like a lot of the way NPC judges most of the time, because it's just, you've got to be perfect that moment, and I think they should have cut a little slack for who could go on to have a great career or do a lot for bodybuilding. Matt would have done a lot for bodybuilding. He came in second 3 years in a row. He dropped out for a year, then came back.
Could he have beat Haney, you think?
I think so, yeah. I mean, Haney I don't think really Lee had any great body parts. Maybe people would say chest or maybe back, I don't know. But Matt could have had some great body parts, which, you know, if you can have one or two freaky body parts, like I told Roman, I think you're ahead in the game. Like Quadzilla, Paul DeMeo was Quadzilla with the legs. Actually, his legs weren't that big, but they look great. I mean, he created the illusion.
Ed, thank you. We could talk all day with you. Yeah. Ed Connors, the one and only. More stories to come. Dave Palumbo reporting from FIBO 2013.